Welcome to Pearson Bryson Stock Alphabet, where we build a 26 company portfolio by utilizing the alphabet. I coined and create that strategy through Pearson Bryson called Stock Alphabet, where we utilize the 26 character alphabet A, B, C, D, all the way to the letter Z. And from that point, every letter that there is, we select a company that matches that letter and reflects that letter, which allows us to have a more diversified portfolio that can earn us a realized gain one day. So that's the goal here. Hedge funds, financiers, private equity groups typically don't share their hands. They usually play chess, four-dimensional chess, but don't show you how they're investing. We're the one first that's going to show you how to actually invest. Not that you should invest or not invest. We're not giving you advice to invest. We're just sharing a methodology and how you can do it right from home and build your own wealth yourself by utilizing and building your own 26 company portfolio yourself. Let's dive right into it. Our previous episode, we went into a company called CleanSpark Inc., stock ticker CLSK. Was absolutely phenomenal. We totally believe in that company and we invested in some quite heavily, and we shared our Charles Schwab account. You can utilize any account you like. It could be any broker's firm account. It could be Charles Schwab like we're doing. It could be even Robinhood. It could be Fidelity. It could be Cash App Investments. They have that as well. Anyone you feel comfortable with, your own bank institution, Chase, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citi, etc. Utilize your bank institution. Whoever you feel comfortable with, you could buy fractional shares or whole shares. We're buying whole shares. We don't buy fractional unless we reinvest it as a dividend, etc. But that's a whole other story. But we're buying whole shares, and you can follow along with us if you like. That's totally your choice. But always do your due diligence. We left quite a bit of articles and resources in the description of this video. So in the description below, you can follow it, or you can follow the description anywhere you find this and review the articles, do your own scrutiny, go through your own test. But let's dive right into it. So we're investing in a company, stock ticker, get this, letter D. D like David, D like Dominion, letter D. So Dominion Energy is a utility company that was founded in 1909. They're a Centenarian company who has been running and established over 100 years now. It's approximately over 120 years, and quite phenomenal. Actually, this will be typically their 127th year being in business, which is quite phenomenal. So with that being said, since they've been in business for over 127 years, they have quite a bit of data. They own quite a bit of land. They are vertically integrated. They own the power plants. They own the transmission lines that distributes the energy to customers. And they also own the distribution channel. So what I want you to understand is the previous episode about the CleanSpark Inc., they're a powerful company. And remember, President Trump, back in 2024, was a keynote speaker at the Bitcoin conference. And he actually put into order Executive Order 14233, which refers to Bitcoin specifically as an asset, a reserve asset. It's an asset that's utilized like gold. They consider the digital gold, and it's seen as a country as an actual legitimate reserve asset, which is huge. That means that legitimized it. It's a legitimate asset now. So what that means essentially is that miners typically it takes a lot of energy. It takes quite a bit of gigawatts to actually perform and solve these cryptographic puzzles. And so Bitcoin miners through CleanSpark and many other miners utilize this strategy and energy, but they have contracts at low cost. What makes mining companies profitable is locking in long-term contracts with the government and or long-term contracts with utility companies like Dominion. Dominion offers contracts because they own the plant. They're vertically integrated, so they own the power plants, they own the land, they also own the transmission lines lines to supply the energy. They also own the distribution channel, so they are the machine that builds the machine. So what that means for Bitcoin miners or anyone that needs to utilize energy, especially at high gigawatts, like solving Bitcoin, like Bitcoin miners need, they actually offer the contract. So they're in full control here. And this actually goes right in plan with President Trump's Executive Order 14233 to regard Bitcoin as a reserve asset. Remember, since President Trump, with his own words, said this, he plans to make, and I'm paraphrasing this, so sorry if I butcher this, but basically saying that his goal was to make America the crypto capital of the world and Bitcoin the superpower. That's the reality of it. Like even before President Trump was in office, 2024, he actually was a keynote speaker at the Bitcoin conference. And why that means a lot is because the reality of it is, since it is vertically integrated as a company, Dominion Energy, they own the rights to give to a Bitcoin miner, for example. And this is like not just in America. Globally speaking, Bitcoin is considered an asset. So, and it requires a lot of power. So Dominion specializes in low cost energy. They have so far spent $9 billion into developing their offshore windmill project to be able to develop energy through wind channels. And also they're developing solar as well. So they spent $9 billion of the $11.2 billion that they're utilizing for these projects. And that's why my first conviction is because they are vertically entered. They already have the bones laid out, and they're put in a position where they can totally capitalize off of, since they own everything. Next, utility companies, Dominion Energy, or any typically utility company, telecommunication companies like cellular companies, phone services, etc., water utility companies, gas utility companies. Dominion offers these services. Utility companies get something called a legalized monopoly. They're allowed and granted that through regulatory law by the United States. They're one of the few industries that is actually encouraged to have a legalized monopoly. It's usually not allowed. This is a rarity and an exception that is made for utility companies, because the framework is this: they're not going to give contracts to multiple utility companies in one area, because the lands, like, it's not cost effective. It's not efficient to have multiple power lines, multiple telecommunication lines, have multiple sewage lines or water lines running through the same land space. What they prefer to do, give it to one company like Dominion Energy, right behind me, a monopoly and a territory. For example, they service all Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina. They actually have a 33% penetration. They're in 18 states, actually. A lot of people think it's only 15 states. People that do follow, it's actually 18 states at this point. Dominion Energy has utilities in 18 states. That's 33%, a little over 33% of the United States. And think about it. If there's 18 states, that's 1/3 penetration. So they have quite a bit of control, which furthers our conviction of why we're investing in them. Yes, they pay a dividend, but more importantly than that, they have market penetration, and they have locked in, governed, contracted monopoly territories where other utility companies cannot transact in Virginia, for example, or North Carolina, or other parts, Utah even. They're, like I said, they're in 18 states, quite phenomenal. So that actually, what that means to us is that since they already have the groundwork laid out and they're in a position already, they're not a new utility company that's trying to gather like space and get easements or get rights to these land rights. They already have them, and they've been running since 1909, over 126 years, essentially, give or take. That's quite phenomenal. That's the main first reason why we're actually vertically integrated. Our framework of thinking is why they're vertically integrated is for those reasons why they're a worthy investment. They're very transparent as well. I left their YouTube channel below as well. You can follow their social media accounts. You even go to their website, and they are very transparent. They will share the information through their actual website. You review their 8Ks or 10Ks. You could look at the investor insights on how they're performing, what some of their goals are, what they've been doing so far. Very important to do this. And you can do it yourself through the website. We left the website in the description below as well. Do your due diligence as well. Like we mentioned before, don't just believe me because I'm on YouTube. Always double check any YouTuber, social media person. Make sure we're telling the truth. Make sure we know what we're talking about. And I left all the articles and proof in the description below, but feel free to scrutinize it. And I'm gonna leave the whiteboard of conviction right here in the end of the video, so you can take a picture of it, you can review it, you can go through my thought process. I did my best to put as much information here. I didn't put all everything on here, but I try to put what's most important, and it's quite a bit. So for example, I clearly put that their stock ticker D, so if you want to find them, research them yourself. They're traded on the New York Stock Exchange as well. They were founded in 1909, as I mentioned before. They're a Cincinnati company, over 100 years they've been running. They've invested $11.2 billion into the offshore wind project. They do expect the wind to generate, on a conservative level, it could be more, but conservatively speaking, 2.6 gigawatts. That is on a conservative level. That's 24/7 a day. Can energize up to 600k homes or possibly more. Think about it this way: Bitcoin miners, for example, our last stock ticker we invested in, COSK Clean Spark, our last video, they actually had a methodology of powering at least 1 million homes with 1.6 gigawatts, and that was a little that was conservative as well. With room to grow. They're also investing in more space and more land contracts with companies like Dominion Energy and getting more cheaper cost, because the more they save, the more Bitcoin they can create and the more profit they can earn in a more efficient manner. But the point I'm making is that with Dominion Energy, it's fairly similar. So they say they want to energize 1 million homes, or to use the example of one major city like Los Angeles, San Francisco, etc. They're very similar. There's 2.6 gigawatts on a very conservative level, and they want to increase that, could power 600 homes, essentially a small city, to maybe even 1 million homes, etc. The goal is also with solar to bring in 12 through 16 gigawatts. If we're talking about 2.6 gigawatts on conservative level, at conservative level, it could be more, it could be 1 million, 1.2 million, but conservatively speaking, could energize 600 homes, essentially. What do you think solar with 12 through 16 gigawatts can energize? Way more homes than that. It's almost like times 10, actually. That's quite phenomenal. That's the power of wind, and why they're investing so much money into it, which is $9 billion so far as of January 16, 2026, today's date. The stock's at $61.25. I'm actually going to log in and let me actually buy the stock now. Let's see. Yeah, so, and like as I mentioned, you can use any brokerage account that you like. You can use Robinhood, Cash App, Investments, Fidelity, any other ones I'm not mentioning, Charles Schwab as well. And super simple, you go and log in, buy, and that's pretty much it. And that's the power of this, is that you can invest this right at home while you're watching the video. Again, do your due diligence. We do see the company as a worthy investment, a long-term investment. And there we go. And pardon me if there's a delay. I'm just trying to share my screen as well. And there we go. And buy. There we're done. And again, you can go to their website and look at their stock information. You can also visit through your brokerage, stock ticker D, or just go on Google and put them in, look at their articles, look at what they have offered so far and information. You can also check out the EGR system. There's Securities and Exchange Commission. Securities Exchange Commission. I left the description below on the website. You can go to look up their 10K, 8K. Public companies are required to follow this, so it's worthy to look at these information to find out what their liabilities are, what their valuations are, if everything they're saying is true, if there's anything you're uncomfortable with. Use the EGR system, use their tool to pull it up, and I left the website below. You can also look at the screen on how to properly do it, simply as type in their stock ticker, letter D, select Dominion Energy, go through 10K, 8K, etc. as you please, and that's about it. Really, it's pretty simple. But let me get back to my wall of scrutiny. So, as I was mentioned before, it's currently at $61.25 as of today's day. Is the price we bought it for. And just so you know, yes, they're vertically integrated, but they have a partnership with the FBI. Really important to understand this for cybersecurity. They are not only transparent, they're definitely in nature. They want to do their best to share as much information with customers and saving them money and giving them rebates, and for companies, businesses, since they actually have the ability to offer a lot of discounts because they own the power plants. Remember, when you own something, when you own the power plants, when you own the machine that creates the machine, when you own the transmission lines to distribute the energy to businesses and retail customers like homeowners, apartment complexes, etc., and we own the distribution channel, you can actually control the price a whole lot more than leasing it from someone. It's harder for someone to give you a discount if they don't own the product. No different than a farm. Going to the store, they have to charge you what they purchased from the farm on top of their price to run their business. A farm can bring it down to wholesale and sell it to you a whole lot cheaper. And that's the power of going directly through Dominion Energy, because they are a company that owns the whole supply chain and distribution channel as well, and which is why vertically integrated companies are typically our appetite, and utilities especially, because they have legalized monopolies, which is usually not allowed in most industries, but there is an exception here, because the United States has government, and most states have governed that it doesn't make any sense. It's not efficient to have multiple utility companies in one area with multiple power lines in the ground, multiple telecommunication cables, multiple sewage lines, multiple water pipelines, etc. Makes no sense. Better just select one, and they deal with that whole territory. In this case, they deal with all Virginia, so they have the whole state. They also have North Carolina. They penetrated 18 states, which is a little over 33%. Out of the states here, they're in 18 of them, which is phenomenal. So again, this still goes to our number one conviction, why we invest in them as well. Next, also they have something called a net zero emission goal. What that means essentially is that farming also, and really even when you drive a car, but especially farming in general, or even just certain like power plants, nuclear power plants as well, they unfortunately contribute to global warming. And even if you believe in global warming or not, it's here to stay politically speaking. Politically speaking, there have been issues with utility companies, not just Dominion, just in general, for creating any type of like offshore wind projects to make more sustainable energy. Because unfortunately, the way it looks is that most people that are in the sector of wanting to save the world and like keep the global warming from the world getting hotter and keeping and melting the ice caps, etc. That's a whole other conversation. The issue is that oftentimes and everything, power plants, etc., don't have the most sustainable or eco-friendly methods of distributing waste or distributing like energy, because there's a lot of things that use with fossil fuel and things that damage the world. Is what, if you believe this or not, that's what the framework is legally. And a matter of fact, Donald Trump, once he was reelected and on his first full day in office on January 20th, 2025, right here, he actually put in order a memorandum. A memorandum has essentially a similar power to an executive order, but there's no number to it essentially, but it has a similar power. Just like how Donald Trump put in order to make Bitcoin a reserve asset, essentially, the same goes for a memorandum. He put in order a memorandum to basically stop offshore producing of the windmill projects that other companies like Dominion and other utility companies were endorsing in, and which would stop and halt their progress and basically made it illegal to continue construction. So what happened was there's a few judges actually stepped in that were federal judges, it reached the White House. And one of them that I mentioned here as well, on February 3rd and also February 25th, they blocked the injunction. That was Judge Lauren Ali Khan, and that was on February 3rd, 2025, and also followed up with a preliminary injunction that blocked memorandum enforcement. So that way, companies like Dominion Energy could continue like the wind project, essentially the offshore wind project, which the Trump administration was not happy about that. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. And I say I have three convictions. This goes into my second conviction, is the fact that since it was essentially outlawed for a bit, for like the first month, and the first day Donald Trump got in office, he wrote into law the memorandum. Think about it, the first day. Like, he didn't wait 10 days. That means it's been on his mind. And that was the first thing he considered, was making sure that this was outlawed. But it was turned around by two judges in particular, more judges, but just two in particular. And the other judge, the federal judge, was Judge Royce C. Lamberth. He also turned it over as well, and he allowed the construction to continue as well. So they blocked, it's a temporary block to block the enforcement of this memorandum. So now companies that are utility companies that are building or have wind projects, and so far Dominion has invested $9 billion of the $11.2 billion project expense that's going to cost to complete this, that allows them to actually create and go forward with creating the rest of the construction project. That way they have sustainable energy. And this kind of ties into number 3, is the fact that it became a political matter is the reason we also convicted, that formed our conviction and why we invested heavily into this company, because it's popular now. And second, the fact that Donald Trump actually specifically went in the first day, his first full day in office, made this part of the memorandum. He didn't wait no time for this. Even the Bitcoin, that happened later on. This was even before he read into law the executive order 14233 regarding the Bitcoin. He actually, on the 20th of January, his first full day, he actually wrote this into law. So this goes into my theory number 3. Now, this is complete speculation with a little bit of conspiracy theory. But when we talk about politics, there's a little bit of conspiracy theory, there's a little bit of speculation, and that's what makes it so fun. I could break down numbers all day, and this is quite fun for me. But let me share this with you. So my method of thinking is this is pure speculation again. So look, if President Trump, the first full day, wrote into law a memorandum to stop the construction goals of companies that are utility companies for the offshore wind projects to create sustainable, low-cost energy that's cheaper than electric counterpart and power plants. But he also said before he was in office that he wanted to make Bitcoin the capital, US, the Bitcoin capital of the world, and Bitcoin the superpower. And we understand that, as I shared before, Bitcoin requires a large amount of energy, land, and gigawatts that is almost unsustainable for most people. This is a high barrier to entry to actually develop at that level. You have to solve these cryptographic puzzles that require a lot of power and a lot of energy. And miners typically win because they create, without miners, there would be no Bitcoin. Impossible. The reason Bitcoin's here is because miners solve the puzzle. So that means we need miners, and miners need power, and miners lock in long-term contracts with the government and long-term contracts with energy companies and utility companies like Dominion, stock ticker D. So what does that mean? If Dominion can offer, and they're vertically integrated, they own the power plants, they own the transmission lines of distribution of power, they also own the distribution channels to customers and businesses, and now they're creating offshore windmills to create a lower, they provide electricity, but with the windmills and the offshore wind project, they'll be able to utilize a cheaper source of energy. That means miners will win. They'll be able to make more of a profit potentially. They'll be able to actually have more revenue. The Bitcoin will be more accessible for miners. They'll be able to lock in contracts with mining companies. Dominion will lock in contracts with them. So what this tells me, and this is conspiracy mixed with a little bit of speculation, that might be too powerful. That might be too much control for one company or companies in the sector. And remember, in the United States, Dominion Utility Company, the one behind me, stock ticker D, and other utility companies that offer utilities have easements. It's called easements in real estate. These are declared areas where they have power lines, water pipes, sewage lines, telecommunication cables for cellular phones and phones like internet. They're as a legally monopolized area. So what this means is, if this doesn't get outlawed by the Trump administration, the whole goal of Bitcoin being the superpower of America and the United States, the capital of the United States would be the crypto capital of the world and the Bitcoin capital of the world, but also the superpower. This goal will possibly be dampened a bit, because think about it this way: if Dominion Energy and other companies that own the easements, that own the monopolized territory areas, they have all the control then. That's almost like a government level of control, of power. So beyond why Trump administration is doing this is speculation. I didn't read this anywhere. This is just my own speculation, and what I think could possibly be happening is it might be a little bit of a conspiracy of maybe not allowing them to go through with the project because that's too much control for a company. And then the government is forced to make contracts with them, typically at their price, or forced to do business with them without having to control. And I think that's where it kind of falls into. But again, someone might say, oh no, it's because the emissions, the green gas emissions, etc. That's possibly true. But I think deeper, if we follow the money, the reality of it is that this company will have so much power. They'll also have the legalized monopoly and areas and targeted areas that other utilities can't access. And they're basically, they have these land grants that they can control this territory and it's monopolized, and only their company will take over. Like Dominion has all Virginia, for example, North Carolina, Utah. They're in 18 states already. So instead of the United States being the crypto capital of the world or the Bitcoin capital of the world and Bitcoin the superpower, it'll be more like Dominion stock ticker D is the powerhouse of the world, or at least the powerhouse of Bitcoin in the United States. So that narrative might not fit well. And then you're forced to kind of do business with this company. And essentially, this company might become a government entity. It might have contracts with the government. The government will basically have to get rights from them. They're not the producer. They're not vertically integrated. They are just the government. And the Dominion has the supply chain. They have the power plants. They're vertically integrated. So you basically are at a point where now the United States government that wants to be the crypto capital of the world and Bitcoin capital of the world and Bitcoin the superpower, as Donald Trump famously stated, now they have to go to this powerhouse and basically get power from them, literally. So that is part of my conspiracy theory, makes it a little of my speculation. And again, don't think for one bit that investors don't think like this. And again, I haven't heard of this strategy from anyone. Doesn't mean I'm the only person who thought of this, but I thought of this myself. This is my own. I think of all different assets, crazy, good, bad, doesn't matter. That's how I make worthy investments. I need to think about I look past the dividends. I look past the stock price. I look past the trajectory. I look past the loss ratio. I look past all that, depending on me. I look past the market capitalization. I look at a lot of different varieties and variations and ways that this could possibly go. And my mind went there because it's just, the timing is just too perfect. The first day Trump's in office, he makes it write in a memorandum, which has the similar part as an executive order. And then a few days later, he writes into he makes executive order 14233 to basically essentially coin Bitcoin a reserve asset. Too coincidental in my personal opinion. But again, it is speculation, definitely conspiracy. And again, doesn't mean this is true, but this is what makes it fun for me. And I do believe in this. And this is why Pearson, Bryson, and myself are investing heavily into it, because we believe in that conviction of it being possibly Dominion utility company and any other utility company that offers wind power will lock and monopolize the industry legally. Because what happens is now, all the Bitcoin miners, because Bitcoin wouldn't exist without miners, because miners need to solve the cryptographic puzzles. But if the miner solves the cryptographic puzzles, they also want to lock in lower energy. Why pay this rate with electricity when wind power or even solar power could be a whole lot cheaper and provide the same, if not more, efficient energy? Now they could write new contracts with this company, not the government. And now who controls the contract is Dominion entity, Dominion Energy, and any other utility company that offers wind power and also solar power, which typically costs a lot less than electricity on average. So that means miners, of course, are inclined. Their whole goal is to lock in long-term, cheap cost electricity. That, of course, they want to go to get wind companies and also go towards wind layouts and also locate companies that offer wind infrastructure or solar infrastructure that if it charges them less, why not? And that's how you control the game. That's how you monopolize it legally. And which is why, since Dominion already is a utility company who has a regulatory accepted lawful monopoly, like most utility companies do, in its transacted area and territory area, this is what makes them powerful. Now they can basically kind of like monopolize the Bitcoin industry, because now they're controlling the energy for the Bitcoin, which essentially will, a lot of people do feel, will become the actual currency of the world, essentially. And so this is quite interesting. So that and understanding that is why I'm investing in this wonderful company, Dominion Energy. And I wrote all that here on the board. Again, it's really important because, again, they have a monopoly where they actually, you can only get energy through Dominion Energy in Virginia. And they're in 18 states just like that. That's 33% penetration out of the states here. That's 18 states. Again, they have gas lines, power lines. These are called easements, telecommunication cables, etc. And as monopolized, it's all for Dominion Energy. They've been around since 1909, and that's the reason we believe in it. It's digital gold. It's really just Bitcoin reserve asset at this point, but it's like an indirect direct because yes, we're talking about energy, but it's so connected to Bitcoin because they provide the energy that fuels what the miners need to create Bitcoin. And that's why we're investing in stock ticker D. Welcome to the channel. Do your due diligence. Don't just believe me. It's okay to make mistakes. What's not okay is not learning from them. Some of the best investors in the world in history, like Ray Dalio and many others, have made many mistakes. Kathy Woods, and a lot of people I actually really aspire and respect and appreciate, read a lot of their literature and principles. Highly recommend that through Ray Dalio. And just amazing individuals. Nothing wrong with making mistakes. So if someone looks at this video like, he doesn't know what he's talking about, that's fine. If you think I'm brilliant, great. If you think I don't know what I'm talking about, great. Do your own diligence, educate yourself. We all have different methodologies of training and learning and processing information. This is the way I think. This board represents kind of the way I think. And again, it really comes down to 3 convictions. I know I have multiple here, but it really comes down to 3 big ones, and that's what it is. So have confidence, build your own wealth, and take action yourself. Financial literacy is there. This video is proof of that. Welcome to Stock Alphabet by Pearson Bryson by Conrad. Ciao.